Hello there. I'm going to take this video to just review those concepts of character arcs and static and dynamic and round and flat characters. And the main way I'm going to do that is by going into an in-depth analysis of Rick's character arc. So, to start with, this is Rick Blaine's character arc. This is how he changes over the course of the story. I have Rick listed as a dynamic and round character. He's a dynamic character because Rick changes over the course of the story. He has a character arc. And he's a round character because he is a pretty fully developed and fleshed out character. We get to see a lot of different aspects and elements of his personality, his backstory, his wants, his views, his beliefs. We get to see a lot of different sides of Rick. So he's a pretty fully fleshed out and developed character. If Rick were a static character, that would mean he didn't change. So static characters do not have character arcs. They don't change over the course of the story. And if he were a flat character, he would be a more simplistic character. We wouldn't have the same level of development that we have with Rick. His character would be defined by only one or two qualities, and that'd be really all the development we'd get out of it. So the general gist of Rick's character arc is he starts the film off as a cynic and he ends the story as an idealist. So he starts as a cynic. He's pretty pessimistic. He's negative. He doesn't really have a lot of hope in the future. And he's in general, a pretty selfish and self-centered guy who doesn't really seem to care about anything, really. So we see these traits developed early on in the movie. One of the best examples of that to show how Rick is cynical and how he is that selfish character that doesn't really care about anything or anybody else is when he doesn't help Ugarte at the beginning of the movie. When Ugarte is being arrested in Rick's club for murdering the German couriers and stealing the letters of transit, Rick chooses to just leave him out to dry. Rick doesn't help him. He doesn't hide him, even though Ugarte asks him for help. Rick just lets him get arrested. Because, again, he doesn't care about anybody else. But when Ilsa comes back into his life, he starts to change. As he starts to reflect on the happy times he had with Ilsa back in Paris and the person that he used to be before they broke up. And this really does create a lot of inner conflict in him, where he seems to try and double down on his cynicism, mainly as it seems to be a defense mechanism where he's trying to keep from being hurt again by choosing to not care about anything else. So you can see that reinforced when Ilsa comes to him in the bar when they're drinking late and Rick is really kind of mean and rude to her. But you also see that facade or that mindset start to crack a little bit. First, when he goes to apologize to Ilsa the next day in the street and basically try and rekindle their friendship. And when Ilsa basically lets him know she's still angry with him for the previous night and the way that he treated her and spoke to her. So this does start to, that interaction indicates how Rick is becoming a bit less cynical, how he still does care about Ilsa and he can't really stop his feelings for Ilsa. Or let me rephrase that. He can't stop wanting to act on his feelings for Ilsa. And this change continues in Rick as the film develops. Probably the most telling example we see that Rick is really starting to undergo a serious change is when he helps the young couple get the money they need for their exit visas. So this is a young couple. They're not in the movie that often, but basically the woman goes to Rick in his club to ask him whether or not she can trust Bluey. because her and her husband are having trouble getting exit visas out of Casablanca. They can't afford to pay Louis the bribe that he wants. So basically, in their desperation, Louis has made an agreement with her where he says he'll give her the exit visas if she sleeps with him, and she goes to Rick to ask about that. And Rick decides to go out of his way and selflessly help this couple. And this is significant because he really has nothing to gain by doing this. I mean, as we saw earlier, he's pretty indifferent to the plights of other people. Again, he just lets Ugarte get arrested. But as he's started to change over the course of the story, when this happens and he meets this couple, instead of just leaving them out to dry, what Rick does is he rigs his roulette table so that way the husband can get the money that he needs to pay off Louis and get their exit visas, and so his wife doesn't have to sleep with Louis. So that's a really significant point in Rick's character, and it's further reinforced by the fact that Carl and Sasha, the waiter and the bartender at Rick's club, both are like blown away by it and are they both basically have the attitude of like, oh my God, you did this wonderful thing. What's going on? But shortly after that, we see that just because Rick is starting to change, he has not fully changed. He is still partially this cynical person he was at the beginning. And we see that when he refuses to help Victor. He refuses to sell the letters of transit to Victor. Even though Victor is offering him a fortune for them, Rick is still going back to his cynical, more self-centered ways and choosing to not sell them to Victor. But Rick also, again, there's a lot of development that happens with Rick in just that like 5 to 10 minute period in the middle of the movie. Rick also has a moment where he starts to lean towards being more idealistic and starts to lean towards the change when he allows the band in his club to play the Marseillaise when Victor directs them to do so. And Rick knows that playing the French national anthem in his club is probably not going to go over well and cause problems with the Germans who are in there. And he knows that this is probably not going to end well for him, but he chooses to do it anyway. He allows it to happen because, again, he is becoming more idealistic and becoming more he's starting to take a more definitive stance against the Nazis and the Vichy regime. And as we see, this does cause problems for him when Strasse orders Louis to close the club. Rick's biggest turning point happens at the end, though, when we really see that he has truly become the idealistic person that he was absolutely not at the beginning of the movie, when he makes the incredibly selfless decision to let Ilsa go. Where basically Rick is willing to sacrifice, and he does sacrifice his own happiness for both the cause that Victor is fighting for. He puts that aside because of his hope in the cause and in Victor's fight against the Nazis. But he also he also is motivated by his concern for Ilsa's safety. So again, he sacrifices his own happiness to support his cause and to keep Ilsa safe. And furthermore, this movie literally ends with Rick and Louis going off to join a Free French battalion. So Rick is very much the idealist, where he's definitely taking a stance. He is hopeful about the future, and he is selfless. So that was just a breakdown of Rick's character arc to illustrate how character arcs are developed and how in stories that are properly told, the author, the director, the storyteller does not need to come right out and say, this is who he is, and this is who he is at the end. Instead, they can show through this character's words and actions the type of person they are. And these are the various events that indicate, one, the type of person that Rick is, but also how Rick changes over the course of the story. So this is, in general, how to approach character arcs in any medium for any character in any story. So I hope this proved helpful. I hope this further reinforces or further clarifies how cynicism and idealism are major themes, and basically this conflict between cynicism and idealism, how that's a major theme in the movie. So we are going to start a project over Casablanca and how Casablanca establishes its characterizations later on in the week. For today, however, your assignment is pretty simple. I have a list of the major characters in Casablanca in the assignment description, and you need to classify them as either static or dynamic, and round or flat, and explain why. Pretty simple, shouldn't be too tricky, shouldn't take too long to do. All right. If you have any questions, you know the drill. Email me, come to my office hours, and I will talk to you later.